research and development for tomorrow's weapons.
Seneca had a marvelous insight when he said that fear and hope go hand in hand like two sides of the same coin. For the perceptive ones, the most romantic truths always come in pairs. All forces in nature have a counterside which prevents them from growing inordinately. Hope is the antidote to fear. To dispel the notion of tragedy, one only needs to think about what great things could arise from such an event. Easier said than done, of course. Our minds are not always adjusted to balance. While some live in the side of hope, others live in the side of fear. Then it must be a matter of perception. Because just as there is fear, there is hope. It is in you to decide where your attention will go. A fearful man holds a deep despair for life. He looks at the table of possibility and finds it empty. He scorns life for having made him an outsider to his own kind. I come from nature. Why am I not like nature? He finds in his individuality the answer to his fear. I am incapable of living in this world. I want nothing to do with such trivialities as food or friends. These things are useless to my soul. A hopeful person holds a deep appreciation for life. He looks at his table of possibility, and where we saw nothing before, now he sees a colorful plate of experiences. As in the words of Baltasar Gracian, the hopeful man can see that variety and perfection are what makes life worth living. He feels a sense of unity between himself and the world and expands from his core rather than contract as the fearful would. He is a driver of himself and wills himself into circumstance. Failure reproduces inaction while hope reproduces action. The man controlled by fear will be plagued by doubt, indecisiveness, and distraction. The man controlled by hope will be energized by purpose, willfulness, and focus. Both sides are found in the same man. It is just a matter of who you decide to be. Think about hope. Just for a minute, think about hope. Where can you see it? Can you see it in your surroundings? I definitely can't. Hope is not to be found in the world as we know it. It's not to be found in our minds. I can't abstract myself into hope. Think about hope. Does anything come up? It can come up perhaps in the form of a story, in the form of a memory, but really it's not there, right? So deeper than feeling, deeper than abstractions, deeper than ideas, then what is left? If I took away your feelings, if I took away your mind, then what we have left is your soul. The soul is at the heart of who we are, but we don't give it the importance we need because the soul as a concept is very evasive. We've ascribed things in the spiritual world to the soul, religious practices to the soul, even yogi meditation has a component of soul in it. We have filled this concept of soul with so many things we don't really understand that it has gotten away from us. So let's base it in something real. Perhaps we can find the answer in psychology. Psychology has a deep history of meddling with the thoughts of people, why we do things, why are we who we are. And this is at the core of the question, the soul. The soul is what moves us forward or backward or side to side. It is definitely the place where everything springs out from. A parallel to this very same idea is found in psychology, as in the words of Freud. He put forward the concept of the subconscious. And so the most similar concept that we already have in our modern understanding of the world that correlates to the concept of soul as found in spiritual practices is that of the subconscious and unconscious. This with the hopes of removing any sort of spiritual voodoo, any sort of ethereal explanation that could make this have less sense. Just as a reminder, Freud introduced the concept of the subconscious as repressed sexual energy, as the libido, as the suppressed animal instincts that are inside each and every one of us. Out of all of the things that Freud had right, this is not one of them. Freud did hit the mark on the part of the subconscious. He introduced the concept as a means of explaining away things that aren't immediately apparent. We tend to do things irrationally. We act in ways that don't benefit us, even when it goes against common sense. Why do we do this? It is through the concept of the subconscious that we explain away anything that we can't truly know. A contemporary of Freud Carl Jung expanded on his idea and gave a new light to this concept of the subconscious. Carl Jung called it the unconscious, which is how we understand it right now. Carl Jung saw it as a major force that drives our psyche. Basically, this is where all of our psychological manifestations spring out from. He saw it in the place of culture because we can see culture, but we don't know how much it influences us. He saw that throughout history, a pattern of character emerged time and time again. These were the archetypes, and he said that in any human endeavor, people are always going to try to embody different archetypes. For example, the hero archetype. Think about the stories, the myths that we tell ourselves over and over throughout history. The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of heroism. The myths of the Norse gods are also ones of heroism. The myths of the Greek gods are ones of heroism. We can see that the founding tales of all of these civilizations have an aspect of heroism inherent in them. Think about great poets like Homer with the Odyssey and the Iliad. They display heroism to an astounding degree. They have set forth the golden image of what a hero should look like and how he should act. Think about Achilles, think about Agamemnon, think about Hector. These are all heroes embodied in these characters. We also have the mother, the caregiver, the knight. We have many archetypes which you would find in many founding tales. They help to explain a key part of the unconscious process. Now, if we go into some books that have dived exactly into this question, take for example Blink, we will find that the ratio and numbers that they give to our composition between conscious and unconscious is roughly between 60 and 99% of our composition. If we think a little bit further about how much of our lives are actually controlled by our unconscious processes and what isn't, I would say that it's probably 99% unconscious, 1% conscious, right? Just think about your heart beating. Think about the millions of operations your body needs to go through just to keep you alive. I mean, right now, I'm doing a million different operations in my head without me realizing. And the 1% that's left is going to be just my consciousness and how I perceive the world. So, if we were to make an inverted pyramid, some sort of iceberg of what propels action in a human being, we would find that at the very top of the iceberg is ideas. Ideas are not as powerful as we think. Why? Because at our core, we're not a brain. At our core, we are a beating heart and blood and organs. This is part of our biological truth. So, what can be more real to a biological organism than feeling? Nothing, right? So, if we were to compare the two, ideas and feelings, which one would have more weight over the other? It's definitely feelings, right? If you want to go to the supermarket, what is going to get you there? The notion that you need to go to the supermarket or hunger? Probably hunger, right? Feelings are inherently what moves us forward. Even in the word emotion, we find the same word, motion. Okay, energy in motion, emotion. That's one way to think about it. But just for the sake of fun, what could be even deeper than a feeling? What could be even deeper than emotion? Well, you guessed it right, the unconscious process. The unconscious is the creative force which moves us. This is very evasive because we all know that every person is a universe. And what defines a universe? Well, that it's pretty vast, it's immense. And if you set out to understand it, you probably would never fully comprehend it. You can't really start to try to imagine just how big it is. Every person has that. Every person has a universe within themselves that is a compilation of everything you can muster. Your sense organs are constantly recompiling information. Your ideas are constantly being mixed together, intertwined with each other, creating new innovative concepts. Your experiences of what life has been like will also shape your unconscious. And probably many more factors, but these three are the ones that we're most familiar with. So, when we're talking about experiences, we already know that, depending on how your life has played out up to this point, is going to have a huge impact on your vision of the world, on your worldview. Basically, anything that you have lived will determine what you are. Okay, and most importantly, too, what you consume. That's why having a clean feed on social media is very important, because what you consume is eventually going to determine who you are. Well, now that we understand a little bit more about the unconscious, what is its relationship with hope? That's where we started, right? Well, we want to arrive at a definition of what hope is. We said that it's not to be found in ideas. I can't think about hope. We said that we can't really find it in feeling. I mean, it doesn't feel like happiness, it doesn't feel like sadness, like anger. It doesn't really feel. But we said that we can find it in the unconscious. How does it manifest itself in the unconscious? Where do I find it? What influences it? To explain hope, we need to talk a little bit about vision and worldview. Your hope is going to be determined by where you fall. Are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? Do you live in a world where the mighty and the strong win, or where the wicked and despicable get ahead? Depending on the world you live in, is probably going to determine your outlook on life. This is a poetic way to say these things, but it can all be summed up in, are you a pessimist or are you an optimist? This is even bigger than you think. So, having said that, what is my definition of hope? Hope is an optimistic force that propels you forward. That's simple. We have stated that it is based on worldview. So if you want more hope in your life, you need to change what side of the coin you're actually looking at. Are you living in the side of fear, or are you living in the side of hope? They are two sides of the same coin. A lot of hope needs a lot of fear to keep going, and vice versa. Anything that moves you, anything that makes you want to get out of the bed in the morning, is going to be hopeful. So the more invested you are in a project, the more invested you are in your own life, in a romantic relationship, in whatever it may be, the more fear there's going to be associated with it. These two things go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So if you have a lot of fear in your life, there's probably a person within you that also has a lot of hope in the future. It's as simple as just turning the other way and choosing to see the reality in which you want to live. Thank you.